What began as a seemingly routine political panel turned into one of the most unexpected and explosive moments in recent media memory when Barron Trump, son of former President Donald Trump, made headlines by publicly calling Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett unfit for office only to be blindsided moments. Later, by a recording she played that completely flipped the narrative. It all happened during a televised town hall event intended to feature voices from both sides of the aisle, including rising figures in American politics. Barron, known mostly for avoiding the public spotlight, shocked viewers by taking a surprisingly aggressive stance. As the youngest Trump, most assumed he'd stick to diplomatic comments, but instead, he took direct aim at Crockett's record, questioning her intelligence, integrity, and even her emotional stability. The crowd murmured uncomfortably as he labeled her a dangerous distraction in Congress and claimed she lacked the temperament to legislate. Crockett, composed but clearly rattled, didn't react, at least, not at first. Instead of responding emotionally, Crockett calmly thanked him for his opinion and asked if he had based his assessment on any specific legislative failures. Barron replied that he didn't need to hurt. Public outbursts, he said, were proof enough. The tension in the room grew. Then came the moment no one could have predicted. Crockett, with a quiet confidence, pulled out her phone and asked the moderator for permission to play a short clip. The host hesitated, but sensing the moment's significance, gave a nod. The audio began playing loudly across the auditorium. It wasn't edited, it wasn't chopped. It was a private recording of a political fundraiser that had taken place months earlier, one where a close Trump family advisor had been heard saying that Jasmine Crockett was one of the few in Congress who's actually scary smart and that she knows how to rip a witness to shreds without even raising her voice. The room gasped. People looked around in disbelief. Barron's face turned from smug to pale. It got worse. The voice in the recording continued, talking about how Republican strategists had privately urged donors to avoid direct confrontations with Crockett, fearing she could embarrass even the most seasoned GOP voices during committee hearings. When the audio ended, there was a long silence. Crockett leaned forward slightly, smiled gently, and said, "I just thought the audience should hear what's being said when cameras aren't rolling." Barron was caught completely off guard, tried to regroup, fumbling to claim that the clip was out of context or possibly fake. But Crockett quickly followed up, producing screenshots of emails confirming the event and the attendees, including the very advisor whose voice was in the recording. The moderator, now wide-eyed, turned to Barron and asked if he wanted to clarify anything. Barron, for the first time, didn't have much to say. The confidence was gone. The room had turned on him not with boos, but with the kind of stunned disappointment that can't be undone. What made the moment so devastating wasn't just the content of the recording, but the strategy behind Crockett's decision to use it. Rather than shouting over Barron or launching into a defensive tirade, she had simply let facts and truth speak for themselves. The audience, initially uncertain who to side with, began to murmur in support of Crockett. Social media, which had been roasting her in real time just minutes before, pivoted completely. Hashtags like #SmartCrockett and #ReceiptsQueen started trending within the hour. People who had never paid attention to congressional hearings were now watching clips of her committee performances, marveling at how she dismantled witnesses with precision and wit. Conservative commentators scrambled to respond, with some doubling down on Barron's claims, while others distanced themselves, arguing that he had gotten ahead of his skis and walked right into a trap. Even longtime Trump loyalists admitted, privately at least, that Crockett had played the moment brilliantly. Barron's team tried immediate damage control. They released a vague statement, insisting he was simply expressing concern as a citizen and that his words had been distorted by a theatrical stunt, but no one was buying it. Political analysts from both sides of the spectrum dissected the fallout on every major news network. Some said it was a masterclass in restraint and preparation on Crockett's part. Others noted how rare and significant it was for a public figure, especially one as closely tied to a political dynasty as Barron, to be so thoroughly upstaged in such a calm, calculated way. Within days, the clip of the recording had been viewed over 30 million times across TikTok, X, formerly Twitter, and YouTube. Even comedians and late-night hosts jumped on the moment. It's not to mock, but to applaud Crockett for her sheer command of the situation. The tide had turned completely. And Barron's initial comment about her being unfit was now being viewed as a spectacular misfire. Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett handled the aftermath with characteristic composure. She refused to gloat, telling one interviewer, "I'm not here for revenge or viral moments, I'm here to work. And sometimes that means defending your credibility with proof, not emotion." That line alone went viral. Many pointed out how rare it was to see a politician, especially a black woman, navigate a public ambush with such calm authority. Within days, several progressive PACs had launched fundraising campaigns off the moment, raising over $1 million in small-dollar donations. At the same time, Barron's political credibility, which had been carefully crafted in quiet circles as he emerged from private life, took a major hit. Pundits who once speculated he could follow in his father's footsteps were now asking whether his temperament was too reactive for public life. Sources close to him admitted the moment had rattled him and that he had. It's underestimated how formidable Crockett actually was. Behind the scenes, Republican operatives reportedly scrambled to reassess how they engage with Crockett in the future. One memo leaked to the press warned GOP staffers to avoid public showdowns unless fully briefed, and listed Crockett among a handful of higher-risk adversaries, known for turning attacks into political gold. And meanwhile, Crockett's supporters flooded her office with letters, emails, and flowers, many of them saying the same thing: "Thank you for not shouting. Thank you for staying sharp." In the days that followed, she appeared on several national outlets not to rub in the moment, but to focus on her legislative agenda, talking policy, while the media still buzzed about her viral showdown. It was a strategic pivot, reminding everyone that while she could dominate headlines with a clip, she was ultimately focused on the work of governance. That balance, rare in today's political climate, earned her praise even from unexpected corners. What made the whole situation resonate so deeply with the public was that it wasn't just a political win, it was a narrative reversal. A young man from one of the most powerful families in the country attempted to embarrass a sitting congresswoman with a casual dismissal, assuming that rhetoric would overpower preparation. But Crockett's ability to remain composed, to anticipate the attack, and to dismantle it with quiet authority reminded viewers that intellect and integrity still matter. It wasn't about party lines in that moment. It was about how people handle pressure, how they respond when underestimated, and how they reveal truth without turning to chaos. That, more than the recording itself, was what changed everything. Crockett didn't just win a viral moment, she flipped a narrative that had been stacked against her from the beginning. In the aftermath, think pieces flooded the internet about how women in politics, especially women of color, often expected to react emotionally or be caught off guard, and how Crockett's performance broke that stereotype wide open. She didn't yell, didn't insult, didn't demand apologies. She simply exposed the truth and let the facts stand unshaken. Barron Trump, meanwhile, retreated from public view, canceling upcoming interviews and reportedly refusing to take further political meetings. His inner circle went into quiet retreat, reportedly reevaluating how quickly they had tried to thrust him into the spotlight. Political mentors close to the Trump family admitted that Barron had stepped into a bear trap with his eyes closed. And while it's unclear if this moment will permanently damage his prospects, it undoubtedly slowed them down. The lesson was learned the hard way: underestimating Jasmine Crockett isn't just unwise, it's unfit. By the time the dust settled, the headlines had already cemented their verdict. Crockett turns tables with recording that shook the room. Barron's misstep becomes Crockett's moment. Prepared, not petty. These weren't just clickbait, they were reflections of a cultural moment. A political underdog had turned a public insult into a national conversation about credibility, power, and preparation. And while the moment might eventually fade from daily headlines, its impact won't be easily forgotten. Reminded everyone watching that words matters, but evidence matters more. And in a world where spin dominates, the simple act of pressing play on a recording may have done more to shift the tide than 1,000 retweets ever could.